Welcome to the training webinar for this week. I'm Dale Franks, and this week we are going to talk about a little more technical subject. There are really two subjects in Process Director that are not directly Process Director topics, but they are very useful to know when using Process Director. And it's really one of the only two webinars that cover what we would traditionally consider kind of computer programming topics. Process Director is a no-code/low-code platform, so you very rarely have to write code except in two instances. Well, actually, one instance, when you create a business value, but there are two different types of business values that require some technical knowledge that is not otherwise required to use Process Director, one of which is SQL business values, the other of which is REST business values, because you have to use REST services. It is the latter that we are going to talk about today. So I'm going to share my screen, and before we get started, really quickly, I have come across a little tool that I'm going to be using today called Gamma, and that's going to be giving us the presentation portions of our webinar today. This is a sort of AI generated deal that takes notes and turns them into presentations. Presentations, which, by the way, can be exported to PowerPoint. So to give you an example of the power of this thing, these are the notes that I do in Obsidian. I use all of my sort of daily work here and there. I generally do it with a tool called Obsidian. It's a cool tool. I'm not here to sell you Obsidian. I am here to tell you about Gamma, though, because I took these notes, and I want to pay special attention to these. Now, this means stuff to me because this is part of my presentation notes. Probably wouldn't mean much to you without a little extra context. But just copying and pasting those notes into Gamma gives me the great presentation that we're going to look at today. And notice that just these lines here have been turned into, on these two slides, some more interesting and certainly more visually captivating graphics for our presentation. So I am going to be using Gamma today for our presentation, although I am going to go back to the first slide and start there. And we're going to talk about the use of XPath and JSON path in Process Director. The REST business value in Process Director always returns one of two formats. This is just sort of how the REST architecture works. What REST services are data services where you can go and request data from some online source. It may be a public REST service, which is the source of the data we're going to use in the demonstration today. It can be an internal REST service that you have inside your organization that you've exposed to the internet, or it can be, there are several third-party services that you might have, database services that like Progress or other services that would give you access to various data simply by making a REST call. Now, when we make a REST call, we usually do it via URL. And whenever the REST call gets returned and we receive the data, it comes in one of two formats, XML or JSON. We'll take a look at what XML and JSON look like in a few minutes. But you can return the same data in both formats, but they are different. And the syntax is wildly different, and the organization can be wildly different between those two formats of XML and JSON. There are some advantages and disadvantages to each of the formats. We'll discuss those in a little bit. But first, let's talk about how we get data from a REST service. Usually, we get that data via a URL. And so here is an example of the REST service that I generally use for openweathermap.org. It's a free API, and you can toss various zip codes or states or whatever you want at it, and it will return the weather for the geographical region that you specify. And so you'll get things back like the temperature and the current conditions and the wind speed, when sunrise and sunset is, the standard weather stuff that you get in a weather app. Now, the way that I ask for it in this example, and this is the way that this is the format that Open Weather Map uses, is I use URL parameters, right? So I have a parameter in my business value. I have a parameter called zip so that I can pass the zip code from a form to Open Weather Map so I can get the weather for a particular zip code. Now, there is a zip parameter in the URL. Now, for those of you who don't know what a URL parameter is, it's usually just basically a field name, in this case, zip for the zip code. And I have to pass them that field name equals and the value that I want to apply to that field name. URL parameters always come in that format, field name equals, and then whatever the parameter is that you're sending. And you notify the browser that you are sending a URL parameter using the question mark. So this is the actual URL that I am accessing. It's openweathermap.org/data/2.5/weather. That's how I get the weather data back from their API. But to get the weather back that I need, well, when you see this question mark, that means I've got to pass it some information. Now, they ask for a couple of things. One, the zip code, so that I know what area I'm grabbing the weather for. There is an app ID, so you get a free app ID when you sign up for their API, which is, by the way, a great API if you just want to practice using either JSON or XML business values, because they'll return it to you in both formats, which is really cool. But you need this app ID, and so that app ID is one that they'll provide for you when you request it, and you'll need to pass that again as a URL parameter. And we separate URL parameters with this ampersand here. And so I have another URL parameter, units. How do I want my units returned? Do I want them in imperial or metric? This is America. We use imperial units. And so I'm passing imperial as the units parameter. And then there's a mode parameter that you ask for, because they do return data to you in either XML or JSON. So in this particular example, I want it passed back in XML. This is probably the most common format in which a REST service will take your parameters and return the data you want. But REST is really flexible. So I could do something like this. And some REST services actually are done like this, where the organization of the URL includes the parameters without having separate URL parameters. It includes them as if they were part of the file path. So it is possible to have a URL that would take this slash syntax, and I wouldn't put the app ID in here. I'd put 123678890 slash imperial slash XML. Now, in this particular case, I'm passing it the exact same data, and parm or param are both correct in process director terms, but I could pass it this data, or I could just, hard code the data. Either or would work. And it would return the same data to me. The only difference is the way that the URL is organized. So either or is a valid way of getting data from a REST service. So the first thing you have to know when you're setting up a REST business value is the URL that you have to call and the particular format in which you have to call it. It will most likely be one of these two formats, although I would say the most likely format would be the top one where it uses the URL parameters. That's most likely, but it is also quite possible that you will get a URL that is formatted like that. Again, we're passing the same thing. We're passing the same data to that URL. Just the URL is organized in a different way. So these last couple of slashes, well, not the weather slash, but these last couple of slashes here are really URL parameters, even though they are not formatted that way. Once you make the request to this URL, it will take and parse these last bits of the URL and will treat them as URL parameters and will return the appropriate data to you. So anytime that you have a REST service, you're asking data generally from a URL. It may be a public URL that's accessible from anywhere on the internet, but it's also possible, especially if you're an on-premise customer and you have your own APIs that are built behind your firewall, you may have your own internal URLs that only work inside your network. And presuming that Process Director is also inside your network, if you're an on-premise customer, it will go into your internal API and will return the same data. For you as a process director designer, it doesn't really matter as a practical matter whether it's a public URL or an internal URL. It just has to be accessible. If it's an accessible URL, it's going to be treated exactly the same way. The request is going to go out with the appropriate parameters. It's going to be processed by the REST API and then returned to you in REST format, whether that is XML or JSON. So let's take a look at what an XML REST service and what a JSON REST service looks like. XML has three very important attributes. Number one, it is very highly structured. It's not strongly typed in the way that we would expect, say, regular programming language like C# to be, but the structure of XML is very tightly defined. So if we want to look at what the current weather from OpenWeatherMap looks like, and we want to look at it in XML, it's going to look like this. So in XML, everything is in a node, and every node has an opening and closing tag. So if we go to the very top, we see current, and it's inside these angled brackets. All right, well, that is our top node. And here in Visual Studio Code, in fact, I can collapse the entire XML tree and note that I have current, and then at the very bottom, I have /current. So every opening node needs a closing node. Now that is true all the way down in the tree. For example, the second node here is called city, and it has its own opening and closing node. And inside you have these other nodes, time zone, which has an opening and closing node, country, which has an opening closing node. Now there is a little difference here. I have this node called coord. Now there is no closing node called coord here because in the structure of the XML, coordinate has two attributes, the longitude, LON, and the latitude. Now it is quite possible to have XML that looks like this, but I still need to close this coordinate node. And the way that it is done in XML is I have this slash right here before the closing angled bracket. So what this allows me to do is open and close this same node. And the reason I'm doing it this way is basically a time-saving measure. This is an allowable way to do this when I have a single coordinate and coordinates must have two properties. If I just have a longitude or just have a latitude, that doesn't help me much in knowing what the location is. I've got to have both of those things so that it creates the little cross on the map so I know exactly where the latitude and longitude lines meet. Similar here for sun. I've got sunrise and sunset. So I have two separate attributes of sun. What this type of closing tag allows me to do is just include all of those attributes in coord. Now, this is a shortcut. It is equally possible that I might see this written as coord, and then we'll tab in here and we'll go delete and we'll add an opening tag here, lon, and a closing tag here. And then I would have a closing longitude tab. And then here, I would have a latitude tab that does the sort of the same thing, or a latitude node rather, that does the same thing. So we're gonna fully do it. Lat, and then I would need an ending. And as you can see, Visual Studio Code already wants me to end the coord. So I could write it like this. Now that's a lot of extra characters that I'm having to throw in there with opening and closing longitude and latitude and opening and closing coord. Technically, this is the appropriate or the proper way to express the data in XML. But XML is already pretty verbose, and it has a lot of these, like time zone. Time zone is repeated twice. So basically all of these characters just to get that value. So there's a lot to XML when it's fully formally structured like this. So that little shortcut allows us to have both of those attributes just thrown in as attributes of coord, and they're separately addressable, as we'll see later. But as you can see, I've got quite a lot of formality and rigidity to XML. And really the only shortcut that I have is by being able to have these closing tags with just the slash and then the end angled bracket for some of these values. But again, I can do it like this. I have the search thing that I put in here, which formally has all of these values in an array. And so, to get one number back, I've got all of this text. That's what we mean when we say XML is verbose. Now, the upside of that verbosity is a very predictable and very easy to parse structure inside the XML. If I want to know what the current temperature is, I go to current temperature, and then I get the value, which says 77.47 degrees Fahrenheit, obviously, since we pulled this as an imperial measurement. So I can just follow down these nodes. I don't need the city node. There's the clouds nodes. I can skip that. Here's my temperature node. And this tells me all of the data I need to know about the temperature, both the current temperature and previous temperatures at various times. So it's real easy to follow. Even if you don't know XML really, it's super easy to learn because it's very logical and it's very straightforward. And so if you have a lot of highly structured data, that's really cool. Because the nodes all have descriptive tag names, it's easier to read. Even if you don't know what XML is, you can kind of figure it out that it has a structure and each of those little nodes in the XML has their own name. And so you can kind of go through and figure out how to get information out of it. And that makes XML sort of the easiest to deal with from a parsing perspective and easier to just understand simply by looking at the XML. It kind of describes to you in its own internal code what it is that you're looking at and what each of those pieces of data means. So it's really easy to understand, even if you don't know much about programming or don't know anything about XML at all, because it is so logical and because it is so highly structured, makes it easier for you as a novice to understand what the XML is and what data it's trying to present to you. But the ease of using that XML does come at the price of it being very verbose. It takes a lot more data. If I have two sets of data, and look, for a data set this small, we probably don't care. We have 34 lines of text. Okay, this is not going to be a problem to drag across the internet. What if this contained 1,000 records? That's going to be a noticeable performance difference over its rival for REST returns, which is JSON. Now, JSON is a little bit different. It's very efficient because it's way less verbose, and it's very flexible because what JSON does, unlike XML, is JSON allows you to present the same data in a number of different ways. So I could have the exact same data, but I don't actually know what format I'm going to get it back in when I get it back in JSON, because JSON doesn't have strict validation rules the same way that XML does. I don't have opening and closing tags. And so when it sends me data, it sends it to me in a significantly different format. It sends it to me like this. Now, this is a little bit longer, and one of the reasons why it's longer is because I have added some extra items down here, which we'll get to in a second. But it's sending me the same data, but it is a little bit harder to understand. Now, happily, in OpenWeather's case, they still send me kind of coord weather. Unfortunately, they're giving me extra data, base, and main. So let's see if we can take a look. Can I take a look at these side by side? Can I tile these? Let's go to view, and I'm sure I've got a tile somewhere. Split left, split right. I hope I'm doing this right. So, okay, I don't know what this last thing is over here. I can close that, but let's take a look at them side by side. All right, well, first of all, I've got the current node, which tells me it's the current weather for the city. That doesn't show up here. Where is my city name? It's here somewhere. It's got to be, oh, it's way down here. It's something called name. And there's ID. Okay, where is it actually saying city? Well, it doesn't. There is no city node. It's just sending me back the data, sending it back to me in a different format. And it is not immediately clear to me, or not as clear to me, what it is that I'm looking at. I really have to know what the structure is of the JSON, which is an important tip whenever you are creating a REST business value. You're going to need to have a copy of the data that the REST service returns. So you're going to need either the XML or the JSON, whichever it may be, so that you can tell what the structure is that you're looking at. With XML, it's real easy to figure out because you've got this very logical, very formal structure that is explicitly labeled at every step with what it is that you're looking at. It's less so here whenever you get to JSON. And something is even more confusing in JSON, and I mentioned it before, but let's actually take a look at it. In JSON, I can present the same data in different ways, which brings us to this potential confusion point. Let's take a look at some wonky JSON here. So we'll go back here into REST business values, or no, it's just business values. So BU, there we go, business values, and REST business values. And let's open up this REST sample form. And I use this whenever we are going through the business values training. And I've got this little form that does REST. And this is the important part of this form. It's important enough so that I am going to get rid of that. And well, these are images, so I don't think they'll get bigger if I zoom in, will they? If I control plus. Oh, that's alt. Okay, well, they will get bigger. And let's take a look at, which you should probably be able to see now. But I have, and this is the same data, I have different ways of presenting this data. So right here, I have a list of files. This is an image. It's not really text, but I have this list of files. So I've got an image file, image1, description.docx, forecast.xlsx, agreement.pdf, and so forth. So in JSON, it is perfectly valid to present this data in this structure, or I could present it in this structure where, well, that's XML. Sorry, let's go back to JSON. I can present them in this structure. And in this structure, it's still an array. It's still presenting me with exactly the same data. But now I have this files, and then I have this weird little bracket here, and then another curly bracket, and then I have this F, and that is the name of each file. So it's files F. Or I could just say files, and I don't need to have a structured array element at all. I could just jam all of those files in, separate them with commas, and I can present them that way. Now, I don't know, without looking at the JSON that is going to get returned by my REST service, whether it is going to present me with this list of files looking like that, or that. I don't know what the structure is beforehand, so I need to see that structure so I can parse it. But because I can present this same data in 3 different ways, all of which are perfectly valid JSON, it becomes a little more difficult for me to figure out how to grab that data, because each one of these 3 different methods of presentation for this JSON is going to require a different JSON path expression, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we will. But each of these is going to require a different type of JSON path expression to extract this data. So JSON is simple, and simple is good, but because of the flexibility, it also gets confusing. Now, the nice thing about JSON is if I got to return 1,000 records, it's probably going to be way lighter in JSON in terms of bandwidth and in terms of the file size and everything else that I have to deal with. That's going to be a lot easier to pull across in JSON. So I've got this really flexible and really efficient way of grabbing data via JSON. And I think it's probably fair to say that JSON has won the REST service war in terms of the format that data gets returned, because JSON is so efficient and so flexible, it really has become a favorite of developers. However, it may not be your favorite when it comes to trying to parse out what that JSON means so that I can actually take and run the fill fields from REST custom task and get that raw JSON into a form field somewhere in my form. Because it can be different for every REST service that I pull. I can't exactly be sure how that data is going to be formatted until I see it. So it's not quite as simple to use as XML is, especially if you're sort of a newbie at programming stuff. All right, so let's talk about XPath. Now, we've already talked about the nodes and how you navigate through the nodes, but we also saw attributes as well. So if we go back to our JSON document, we talked about the temperature, which has the value attribute, and the min and the max attribute, or we talked about the city actually, and we talked about the latitude and longitude, or in this case, longitude and latitude attributes. In general, whenever I am parsing a XML business value, I am going to use XPath. And so XPath navigation is relatively easy. Each node we're going to treat it like a file path. And each node is a folder in that file path. So whenever I am navigating through XML, I'm going to use the / between each node. So for this XML, if I was to get to the wanted to get to the latitude and longitude, it would be current /city /coord. But now I'm in an attribute, long and lat. So my current /city /coord works for me well so far, but now I've got to get to that longitude. And to get to the longitude, there is the @ symbol. And I can use the @ symbol to target a specific XML attribute. So with that in mind, let's actually go back and look at our sample for today. So we've looked at the current weather JSON and the current weather XML. That is the data contained in the XML. So we know what XML is going to be returned. So let's take a look at an XML business value. All right, so we talked about that / navigation. So let's go here. We'll copy this and run back over to my text file. And we'll get rid of these URLs. And we'll just drop that in there. Current /city /country. So if I want to know where the country is, I've got current, city, and country as 3 separate nodes. So I can return US simply by pulling current /city /country, and that's the XML or the XPath that I used here. But remember, some of these have attributes, like this one, current /clouds @name. And @ stands for the attribute. So if we go back over here, current /clouds @name. Well, let's take a look at what our XML looks like. I've got current, great, clouds, and this is where the @ comes in, because now I need to get to this attribute right here to tell me what my current conditions are for the clouds. And that attribute is called name. It will return clear sky. And so whenever I write the XPath, it's going to be current /clouds / and then the @ tells me I'm not going to another node. I'm staying inside clouds and I am grabbing the name node inside clouds. So current slash clouds at name. And that is exactly what I have in my business value. Whenever I get data back in either XML or JSON, some of that data is going to be in an array. Now, we're used to thinking about arrays in Process Director, right? Where I have fields and each field is on its own row in the array. And there may be multiple fields on each row in the array. And I have a row number. That row number is the index of the array. And that index for Process Director form field arrays always starts at row number 1. So the index for the very first row is its row number, and that's row number 1. And whenever we are doing things like setting form data in the set form data tab, if we want to set the data for a field called last name in the third row of an array, we always have the ability to go to set form data and say, I want you to change the last name. And if it's an array field, a little tiny text box will appear by last name, which is asking us what row of the array do you want to change the last name? And then we'd, if we wanted to change the third row, we would just put a 3 into that row. Something similar happens in XML and JSON, although the way that they handle it is a little bit different. So let's go back here and grab this value, which I meant to copy and paste back over here, but apparently never got around to it. I've got current, temperature, previous, 3, and time. So let's actually do something here real quick. Let's run our form and let's actually see it work and see what we're going to get in that third field there. So where is my REST sample form? There it is. Let's go ahead and run it and let's get our XML. Okay, so we're getting 1205 in this field. And that's important to know. Let's go back to our XML and we're looking for current, temperature, previous 3 at time, and we're looking for the time that returns us 1205. Okay, well, it's right here, our previous time, 1205. Now, previous is an array. So I have temperature, and then I have 4 nodes called previous that give me the various times. And my third row here is giving me 1205. So I can address an array in XPath, in this particular array, by putting the index number, basically think of it as the array row, inside the previous node. What this is looking for is previous 3, and of course the attribute is at time. So I now know that I need to look there at row 3 on my, well, I didn't want to go there. I have many things open and now I'm getting confused. I need to go to the previous node, which as you can see, there are 4 of them. I need to go to row 3 and I need to grab that time right there, 1205, which of course is what we grabbed when we pulled that time back. It is the time attribute. So if I have an array, and again, I have this array here, I would have search / val, and then if I wanted, 8, it would be val, and then in square brackets 4 to bring back the 8 in that particular array. Arrays are very common in both XML and JSON. Well, they're common in REST in general. There's a lot of data that gets returned in array. In fact, if you're returning 1,000 rows of data from a database, well, that is a 1,000 row array that you are returning from the database, and it will be presented as an array, just as this data here is presented as an array. Each row will have the same labels and the same attributes for each row, and they'll just repeat 1,000 times in your data as you return, 1,000 rows of data from a REST service. Probably shouldn't return 1,000 rows of data from a REST service, but it is certainly possible. And if you do so, each one of those rows will basically be an array row. Well, that's fine. It's no problem because we can always address specific array rows by just grabbing if we know it, just grabbing the index and using the index of that row to give us in this case, the appropriate time that we want. There are a couple of wildcards. Now, wildcards are super useful because what wildcards allow you to do is to add some flexibility into your XPath to basically either use as a filter or to return a whole bunch of data just using a wildcard to just pull back whatever matches your data. So if we go back and look at our XML business value, I don't have it here. So I'm not pulling it back here. I'm actually pulling the value, which is okay. The way that I have it set up here, it's going to pull everything for me. But the asterisk is a wildcard field. So let's say I wanted to return everything, which I can't imagine why you would do it, but it would be possible to return all of this data all at one time. Now, it would all come in as text. I'm not sure how useful it would be to do, but you could actually pull all of this data in simply by using a wildcard like current/asterisk. What that tells me is I want everything that is inside the current node. I probably wouldn't do that because that would be a lot of data, but here's what I might do. I'm sorry, I'm having to copy and paste over. I might want all of the attributes for just the current temperature, right? So I have current, temperature, at, and then I've got this wildcard, which means that if we go back to our weather and I go current temperature at, so current temperature at, it's going to return all of this data to me because I'm saying I want every attribute of temperature returned. So I would get the current value, the min, and the high for the day off of that at syntax. Now, we can actually test all of this stuff on our form simply by making changes to the business value. So I can, in fact, copy that. And, well, I could do current at, but that would be a lot of data, and I don't want to do that. So let's just go back over here, and let's go to our other. And let's paste current/temperature/at star. And we'll hit OK. We'll save our business value. And then we'll run our form. We'll get our XML. And there we go. This is all the data that we're pulling back. 77.47. And in fact, let's run our form concurrently with our XML so that we can see what it is that we are getting with that syntax. So, all right, I've got temperature, I've got 77.47. Oh, well, need to organize. I can't highlight stuff, I guess, or it'll cover over my form. Here's my 68.56. So there we go. That's that value right there. That's my minimum temperature. 85.51. That's my max temperature. And then the word Fahrenheit shows up here because that is the unit that I am running. So by asking for current slash temperature slash at star and using that wildcard, it's just going to pull back all of the data or all of the attributes that are part of the temperature node. Note that it is going to pull them back in a comma separated list. So every one of those values is separated by a comma. Also note, there's no indication to me as a user just looking at this data, there's no indication to me of what it is I'm looking at. I'm just getting the values thrown in as a comma separated list. In this case, that's a little bit confusing because I don't know what all these numbers are. And then I don't know why I've broken to say Fahrenheit at the very end. Why isn't that a number? I know what this is because it's my data. I've used it. We've walked through it. But a normal end user probably would find this difficult to understand. So using those attributes like that, or using wildcards like that, are going to return things that may not be fully comprehensible by your end user. So, your mileage on that may vary. Now, I do have another way of doing this that is kind of cool, and that is this: current slash search slash val. Let me copy this. Let me go back to my XML business value. And that was the value that was in here just a minute ago. And that's the value that I'm going to put back. Current slash search slash val. And we're going to save that business value. And once it's saved, we're going to re-get our XML. And now it says 124816. What is that returning? Well, if we look at our business value again, and we see that, well, I have it right here. Don't need to look at it there. That's probably easier to read here. Current slash search slash val. What is that in my XML data? I should probably bring that up here so we can see the whole thing. Well, we got to go all the way down here. And once again, as we talked about a second ago, we have this array, which are the values in this search node. And I have 5 of them, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. And the reason that I returned all of them is I added this double slash here. And this double slash acts kind of like an asterisk. I mean, technically, I could get the same thing, I think, if I went current slash search slash star. I think that would work. I think it would pull the values across as well. But I can do the same thing with this syntax as well. It just says, give me all of the items that are marked val under current search. Now, in this case, I have all of these fields marked val. This is what I wanted to look at. So these are all called val. So if I do current slash search slash val, it's going to pull 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. And if I do current slash search slash asterisk, it will give me all of these same values too, because they're all called val. Those are the only values that exist. If there were some different names or some different attributes here, I would probably get more data than I wanted. So I'm getting something slightly different here. What I'm getting with current slash search slash val is I'm not getting everything. I'm getting only subnodes that are named val, because I could have, other named subnodes as well. So this will only return the values to me. So it's a much more specific type of wildcard than asterisk, because asterisk means just give me everything. But the asterisk is useful because it gives me the ability in XPath to do something like this. Let's just use current / at value. So let me copy that. Go back here and go current / at value. Let's save our form there. Let's get our save our business value. Let's get our XML. Ooh, I'm getting a lot of stuff here. Maybe I need a bigger text box. Boy, that's a lot of stuff that I'm getting in this one text box. Let's copy, in fact, all of this data in this text box, and let's drop it in here to there where we can see it. All right, well, I think I'm probably going to want to go to this format here now, so that I have my data on the right and the XML, or my data on the left and the XML on the right. So what have I done with current / at value? So unlike asterisk, which is going to give me everything. So current temperature at star is going to give me everything. Current / at value is only going to give me the attributes inside current, irrespective of what node they're in, that are marked with the attribute value. So let's see. We got current city, clouds has a value. That is 0. Oh, there we go, right there. All right, temperature has value, 77.47. Okay. Oh, there we go. Feels like has a value of 77.04. And then the humidity is 45%, the pressure 100%. I'm sorry, pressure 1,007, well, essentially millibars, um, bars of mercury. Um, Speed has a value, 13.8. So everything is all in order over here. It's giving me every attribute that has the name value anywhere inside the current node. And the current node, of course, is entire the entire set of data for this particular one. So everything that says value is now going to get returned. Now, this is not really useful in our current context because all of these values are so wildly divergent. However, it should give you an idea of the power that's available to you by either the double slash or the ampersand in terms of the different kind of wildcards that you can pull back. So we can do all kinds of stuff with this. In fact, if we want to, we can do current / star. So let's go back to our business value here. I don't think we actually ran this, but current / star is valid. Oh, I don't want to add a property. I just want to save this thing. Okay. And let's get our XML again. And it gives us US minus 25,200 and 124,816. So what it is returning are all of just the values that are in the XML. So let's copy this. So many things open. And let's paste it. It's giving me that. Okay. So why is it giving me that? Well, current. All right. Well, let's see. Country, US. Okay. That's a node under current and undercity. I've got time zone. That's a node. Minus 25,200 time zone. Sun, well, these are all attributes. Clouds, well, these are all attributes. Temperature, well, these are all out attributes. Previous, all attributes. All attributes, attributes, attributes. Um, where is my last item? I'm looking for 12416, and it's going to be buried here somewhere. Well, actually, I can just sort of search for it. 124816. Um, yeah. Oh, 124816. It's giving me all of my values. Now, they're all in the search node and it's all in an array. So it's returning that entire array for me as 124816. But because they're inside the search, it is not separating them out. It does not recognize them really as an array. These are just the nodes inside current, and they're the only nodes that don't have attributes. They have actual values. The country has its own node. It is called US, and it gets returned to me. The time zone has its own node, time zone, and it contains this value. It gets returned to me. Search is its own node. I have these value subnodes, and they're all part of search. They're all part of the search node. They all have the same name. So it's just going to parse them out as 124816. So current slash star is going to go through and return everything that is a node value. But as it turns out, I don't really have too many node values. I have a lot of attribute values, but I don't have a lot of node values other really than those two items there, and that right there as part of the search node. So you would think that current slash would return everything in the XML, and it doesn't really. Current slash will return just the independent nodes that have values as a node. But I tell you what I could do. I could go back to my XML business value, and instead of current slash asterisk, I could go current slash at asterisk, and I could save that. And then I can get my XML. And well, that's going to return nothing. And it's going to return nothing because current doesn't have any attributes. If we go back and look at current data, it doesn't have any attributes. So current at slash isn't going to return anything because current itself only has subnodes. So there are no attributes of current. So that would return, well, this does return in this structure, it returns nothing. So we'd have to go back and do like I did for temperature a few minutes ago, because temperature does have attributes. And so if I did the at slash for temperature, it would, as we saw a few minutes ago, just return, these values, including the word Fahrenheit as part of a comma separated list when we return it. So you do have to know your structure. And I don't know why I thought at star would return anything, because I do know that there are no attributes to the current node. So why would it return anything? It would return nothing. But if I did just, current slash star, it does have subnodes that do have values, and it will return those. So the wildcards are pretty powerful, give me a lot of different options for returning a whole bunch of different data outside of my just normal current slash temperature at current, or at uh, it's not current, right? It's value. That's the temperature. So current slash temperature slash at value will give me my current temperature at 77.47. So XPath is pretty easy. Now you do have the ability with wildcards and the double slash to be able to pull subnodes out. It is kind of cool that you're able to do that. But for the most part, it's really easy to understand XML. However, there's an excellent chance that you will not be returning XML. You will be returning JSON, in which case XPath is not going to work for you. You're going to have to use something called JSON path. So let's take a look at our JSON business value. And by the way, one of the nice things about having notes is that I can be sure that I've covered everything that I want to cover. So there we go, our basic navigation, just to recap, because I did forget one of the things in my recap. Normally just regular slash navigation to get to a node. If I have an attribute like name or value or min or max, I just address it with the @ sign. If I have a array like the previous temperature and I want a specific item in the array, then I can just grab it with the index number of that array. Now, in this particular context, unusually for programming stuff, but in this particular context, these arrays are 1 based, which is to say they start with index 1 and count to, whatever the number is, however many rows there are. A lot of you who are familiar with programming like C# or Visual Basic, when you have arrays, the index usually starts at 0, and those are called 0-based indexes. And so the very first row would be 0, the second row would be 1. That's a little confusing. The indexes in our case here for arrays in XPath are going to be 1 based. So row 1 is row 1. And then, of course, we talked about the wildcards and pulling stuff out, and what are called descendant searches using the double slash to get all of the named subnodes like previous. So current slash temperature slash previous slash at time will, in our XML data, return all 4 of these times. And it will return them as a comma separated list. So 1018, comma 1116, etc. On our comma separated list. So I can, with either wildcards or with the double slash, I can go to any level in the hierarchy. And even if I don't know the exact path of an item, by using either a wildcard or the double slash for a descendant search, I can find everything that has the attribute value inside current. If you find the value attribute anywhere inside current, return it to me. We did that just a few minutes ago, and we saw all of those things that have value. So you've got some very powerful options in XPath. You do have something similar in JSON path, but JSON path is a little bit different. JSON path is like XPath with a couple of differences in how they work. First of all, we use dots as separators, not slashes, in JSON path. So every level in a JSON document is separated by a dot from the previous level. So it's not a slash, it's a dot. Second, I need some sort of global reference. So in Process Director, the very first thing we type for any JSON path expression is going to be a dollar sign. That references sort of the global level of the content that we're receiving back. So we know where we're starting in the path. Basically, we're pulling in the whole JSON response, and we signify that with the dollar sign. Now, the problem is where those dots go. And as I said, if we're going to use dots for each level, how do I know where a level starts and begins? Well, the way that JSON is returned is that every level in JSON is designated or denoted, I may have pulled that up a little too high, is denoted by a bracket. So a piece of data is separated out inside a curly bracket. Arrays are thrown in with square brackets. But in general, either curly brackets or square brackets are the discriminators between the different levels. So anytime that you see a square bracket, you know that that denotes a level. And in JSON path, we represent a level with the period character, or as we call it, the dot. And so every time I see an open brace, either a curly brace or a square brace, if I see an open brace, I'm going to count that as a level, which means it gets a dot in the syntax of my JSON path expression. So let's take a look at our JSON path document. And let's talk about how we're going to get these different properties. Let me go ahead and grab the JSON, and we'll have the JSON on my form. Now let's go back and look at the JSON data itself. So I'm going to copy this and paste it so we can all see it here. As I just said, we start off with the dollar sign. That's the very first thing that we put in a JSON path expression in Process Director because it represents the global context, the entire content of the JSON data that's returned. Each time I see a dot, I'm going down a level. So I've got $ dot main. So now I'm looking for a JSON node called main. So let's look at our JSON on the right side here. So coord, weather, base, main. There we go. So that's where I am. And then I have another dot, which tells me I'm going somewhere inside this node here, temp. So $.main.temp should return 77.52. And indeed, on our form, that is what gets returned. All right, so let's try another one. That's 3 dots. Okay, well, that's 3 dots. I'm going to assume that I did this correctly because I do have clear. So let's take a look at what my JSON path was. $.weather.main. All right, well, $.weather. I thought that was right. It should be 2 dots. $.weather.main. I think I may have messed this up. So let me be sure. Star.weather dot main. Let me be sure I don't have the wrong number of dots there. There we go. It's returning the value that I want. Nope, not what I want. I want JSON business value. So $weather dot main. So let's look and see what that gives us. $, well, that's everything. Dot weather. So there's weather. And then it says dot main. Why does it say dot main? Well, because I have a square bracket here. So I know that's a dot. And then I have a curly bracket here. So I know that's a dot. And then I have main as my attribute here. So that's how I get to pull the value of clear back from my JSON by going $weather dot main. So I need two dots right here to grab clear out of my XML. I need those two dots because I have two levels. I don't know why weather has this outer square bracket. What that outer square bracket designates is that it is returning this data to me as an array, but it's an array of one row. I'm not sure what the context would be of it returning multiple rows for weather, but I'm sure that they had some idea of what they're doing and why that might occur. And so, I might end up with, something like, in some contexts, I might end up with something like this as my data. And so I would have, these two items in an array. I'm not sure in what context I would have that, but they've clearly planned for it. And so they've given me this outer array. But that outer array counts as a level in JSON or a node in JSON. So it needs a dot. And then, of course, once I have that dot, I've got this node right here with that other curly bracket, which is actually the area that contains the data that I want. But these two characters here are two nodes or levels in my JSON data. So I'm going to need two dots to pull that data back. For our third field, we're getting all of this data here. So what is all of this data that we are getting there? In fact, let's go ahead and copy all of this data and let's drop her in here. So I'm getting all of this data. What exactly is it that I am getting? Well, according to my business value, I am asking for a wildcard. So my JSON path expression here is using a wildcard, just as we did with XML. It's $.main.star. Okay. $. So that's my global. Dot. So there's my first level, the main level. Dot main. So main is a top level object. Dot. And then, so again, that curly bracket is my dot. And then star. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different attributes. Temp, feels like, temp min, temp max, pressure, and humidity. And that is exactly what I am getting returned here as a comma separated list. It is returning every attribute that is inside the main node using this syntax. So in both XPath and in JSON path, I have the ability to use wildcards to bring back in a whole bunch of other data. Now, of course, remember, if you're going to do that, think about what your user is going to see. If you're throwing this data onto, say, a form field, that kind of makes sense to me. At least I know I have, I don't know, are these dollars? What are these decimal numbers? Oh, and now I'm not in decimal numbers anymore. Now I've got 1,007 and 45. Um, we know that these are temperatures, and this is the current pressure, 1,007 millibars, and at 45% humidity. We know that because we can see the JSON that gets returned. For an end user, he doesn't know what these are, but he probably won't immediately think, oh, well, these are temperatures when he sees that, because if the current temperature or the predicted temperature is going to be 1,007 degrees, well, your house isn't well insulated enough to keep you alive in that event. So this can get confusing. So whenever you use wildcards and you're returning these comma separated lists, just keep in mind what it is that your end user is going to see and how it's going to make any sense to them, or if it will make any sense to them. Now, this bottom one down here is going to get uh, a little wonky, because now we're going to get into our ability to do some crazy things inside inside Process Director. Oh, I should mention arrays, array indexing. We haven't talked about it yet. For JSON path, arrays are zero based. So for XPath or XML, they're one based, but they are zero based in arrays here. So if I have it way down here, I have array, and I have these items in my array. Actually, I have two arrays because I have different ways of being able to present the same data in an array. I can present it like this, or I can present it, a little more formally like this. I actually have three ways that I can present this data, but I've chosen to present two of them here. So let's take a look at this. Array one item. Well, I don't want to copy all of it. I just want to copy that right there. So we're going to have a whole bunch of different things to do here. I do want to array item. Okay, yeah, I've got that in my notes so I can repaste it. We'll paste that back. Actually, I have that here as well. So that's what we're going to try. So I'll bring it over here just so that we can reference it. Array /1 /item. And let's update our business value. And oh, let's get JSON. Okay. My array here is returning 2. So this is where it gets a little confusing. So array /array1 .item. The first thing that's confusing about JSON arrays is where I am going to throw my index number. Because when we went to, if we were doing this in XML and I had this array, what I would be pulling, in fact, we did it in XML. We can actually look and see what we did. We don't have to guess. We can go back to the XML business value. It was current /temperature /previous 3. Okay, so if we go back and look at our XML, current /temperature, and then previous 3. So this is our third row of our array. And so it was row 3 and it was 1205, but it was previous 3. In other words, we put our array index after the item that we're trying to index. Let me go back and grab this value here. Oh, that's array one item. Let me, well, erg. Let me go back to what we were looking at for that array item. So this is the first weird and confusing thing, is that I'm looking at previous 3 when I do XPath. But this gives me array 1 dot item, which means in XPath, it is saying, okay, we're going to array, and the array item is named item. So we're going to array 1 item. And when we did that, it returns 2. See? There we go. There's our 2. It returns 2. So the first thing that's confusing is the item that I am calling. Now, now I have to call it this way with array 1 item because I have to pull the node name. So I have to explicitly pull the name item. But it is actually the index of array. As my item array. It is actually the index of array. This is the array. So I do need to associate the index with array, not item 4 or item 1. I mean, normally what we would think based on this example is that what we were supposed to do here is not do this, but rather do this. See, that would make sense if JSON path and XPath were the same thing, but they're not. So that's not what we want, because item is not an array. Item just happens to be a label that we have on the actual array item. So we wouldn't do this. We would do this. So we are going to need to use the word item, but only because we have a name for each of the array objects. I could do the same thing down here by doing array 2, 1. In fact, we don't have to guess at it. Now, notice that in array 2, these items don't have a label. So I don't have an attribute that I can grab, but I can change that to that. And that should, I didn't want to close it. I just wanted to update it. But that should return, and does in fact return, my 2 again, because that is where the item is. Now, second thing that's confusing is that XML, we're in 1-based arrays. In JSON, we're in 0-based arrays. So item 1 is actually this item right there and that item right there, because the very first item in the array has an index of 0. So if I want to return 1, unlike with XML, if I want to return the first row, I have to set the index to 0 so that when I get my JSON, it returns 1 as my item. So that is number 2 big difference with XML and JSON. XML 1-based, JSON arrays are 0-based. And you do have to keep that in mind. And it's one of those things that you just have to know. Um, because if you get it confused, you will be returning the wrong data, which you probably don't want to do. And that's going to irk you having to switch between zero based and one based data all of the time. Trust me, it irks me as well. Now, with JSON path, we can also do some filtering. Now, we do have the at symbol in JSON or JSON path, but it doesn't work the same way that it does in XPath. So if we take this JSON path item right here, and let me just paste it in here so that you can see what it is. Okay, this looks kind of goofy. What are we doing? Well, let's go and take a look and see what data it returns to us first. So we'll update here and we'll convert, or no, we'll get our JSON. Okay, so it says 4, 8, 16, which means if we go look back over here at our JSON, it is returning 4, 8, and 16. What we're doing is a query to return all of these items where the number is basically the index is greater than 3. What we're doing is we're using a search term here. And like, this is just an example. We're not going to get too deep into the woods of doing weird search things. This is just an example to let you know that there are some sophisticated capabilities, both for XPath and for JSON path. This is one for JSON path. Again, I'm looking at the array. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, we're going to send a query. And we're sending a query by throwing in the question mark there. And what we are looking for is the item node. So we want you to go to add item and find any item value that is greater than 3. So whatever the index is, for any item value that is greater than 3, we want you to return the item value. So basically, we're not even choosing the index here. This is actually a query that says, all right, let's look at our data. Now, if you find anything that is greater than item 3, I want you to return the data that is in that index. So we don't even know what the index is. We are searching for a value greater than 3. And if we get a value greater than 3, then great. Give me the index of that item and then return that data. So we get 4, 8, and 16 because it is going to return to us item 2, item 3, and item 4 out of this array. And it is just going to, on the fly, grab item 2, 3, and 4 and specify those as the array row that we want. And it's going to create that comma separated list for us that creates 4, 8, and 16. We could get way into the weeds on the amazing query features. And look, I have to give JSON path this. As irksome as it is to try to figure out where all these stupid brackets are and to figure out how many dots I gotta have between each of my nodes, and oh, don't forget to put in the dollar sign dot to begin anything. As irritating as that is, the capability that JSON path gives you to actually just run queries on the fly inside your business value is pretty pretty darn cool. And so it is something that you may want to amuse yourself with as you take a look at some of your data and how you might manipulate that data and how you might use queries to bring back better data. Now, I'm just giving you this as an example because this whole query thing would take a while to go through and about how that query system works. And we don't have the time. We're already at 11:30 here, but I do have a couple of links for you if you want to learn more about JSON path and XPath. So the first one is, and it's on this form. And if you want this form or you want this project, just email me and I'll send it to you. But W3 schools, why would we? Oh, I don't know why XML got thrown in there. I must have overcopied. That's what I'm looking for. W3 schools. Yeah, it's kind of run by the World Wide Web Consortium, the people who are responsible for web standards and everything. And they have this cool school. Boy, there's a lot of stuff in here. If you really want to learn web, this is a great place to start. But they have a great XPath tutorial that takes you through step by step and how XPath works. And I think for beginners, this is a great resource to have. There's also this second one for JSON and JSON path. It is not run by the W3C. In fact, the W3C doesn't even have an X or a JSON path tutorial. I don't think, or at least they didn't the last time I looked. But SmartBear does. And so SmartBear goes through all of the JSON path syntax, how filter expressions work. It kind of assumes that you know a little bit about JSON and a little bit about programming knowledge. So it doesn't start off on as beginner of a level as the W3 schools site does for beginners in XPath, but it still starts off fairly basic, and you can use this as a guide to creating XPath. But the cool thing, or I'm sorry, JSON path. But the really cool thing about SmartBear is that they do get into all of these different filter expressions that are available to you in XPath. They give you some examples. They actually give you the JSON and then show you examples of different queries that you can run and the data that gets returned from them. So this is a pretty good documentation site as well for knowing how JSON path works. And so I would recommend that to you as well if you're interested in learning more about either XPath or JSON path as you build your business values. So to sum up this whole thing, if you require strict validation, and especially if you need to have really clearly documented data, you're probably going to return XML. XML is going to be great because it is so tightly, so strongly typed in terms of the type of data that gets returned, how the data is labeled, its comprehensibility. However, it's not great if the data isn't strictly hierarchical. XML is great for hierarchical data because you build that node tree, and every node in that tree is a child of some parent node all the way back up to the very top of the XML tree. So if you have highly structured data, XML is great. If you don't have highly structured data, or you have bandwidth limitations, which happily is not as big a problem today as it used to be in the not too distant past. But if you have non-hierarchical data, then JSON and JSON path are probably better because it is a more flexible format. And it does give you a little more power than XPath does in terms of being able to search and filter your data and to create expressions to grab different data on the fly. However, learning JSON and JSON path is a bigger lift. And unlike XML, which is very highly structured and is great for beginners to be able to understand what the structure of the data is, JSON doesn't give you any of that help. And so it is a bigger lift to learn and to use effectively. Both of them are powerful and both of them are useful, but there are different advantages and disadvantages to each. And of course, you also have the other problem, which is, well, maybe you're not the one who is producing the data, and you don't have a choice of the format in which the data is presented to you. So you may just be forced to use either XPath or JSON path. I think increasingly you're going to be required to use JSON path because that seems to be the direction in which the industry has decided to go. So we have a training course on JSON path and XPath. So if this wasn't enough for you, you can go to training.bplogics.com. If you don't have a training account there, you can certainly ask me for a training account. I'll be happy to give you one, and you can take the XML training. I am trying to figure out desperately how to stop sharing, but that training is available to you. Obviously, this webinar will be on YouTube, so if you want to go through that and review it, it'll be there as well. And the links to the two places that I provided you for learning more about XPath and JSON path are also available to you. So this is an area which you would like to study more so that you're more effective at creating REST web services. There's a whole bunch of resources out there for you to enable you to do that and incorporate them into Process Director. With that, that's all I got for you today. So we'll knock off about 20 minutes early. I'll give you that time back, and I'll take that time back for me as well. And we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Until then, so long.